Okay, and we're live. Welcome, Connie. Welcome, Holly. How are you both today?
Very well, thank you. Hello.
Good. Welcome to your
We're
first
great.
ever LinkedIn Live. It's very exciting.
Very exciting, tiny
Very
bit
exciting.
scary.
You've got lots of folks saying hi in the comments. Hackney, Paris, Suffolk, Brighton. Welcome, welcome, and welcome to folks who are watching this back. I am honoured to have Connie and Holly with me today, two women from a brilliant organisation called Public Digital, who have been long-term friends, clients, supporters of Upfront. And the reason that I invited you both to have this conversation today is we are getting ready to host Bond 7, which will be our 7th cohort of our 6-week online course. Starts on June 5th. And one of the conversations I'm really keen to have more is to help people understand how our product impacts businesses, like why it makes good business sense for teams to invest in the bond. And I think, Connie, your role as a consultant in Public Digital, and you've been on the bond yourself. Holly, your role coming new into this organisation as people director, meeting of these women who'd had this experience. Now you're about to go do it yourself. I just thought, what like a lovely constellation. So I would love to begin by asking you both to kind of just introduce yourselves, tell us a bit about what you do at Public Digital.
Shall I kick us off?
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Connie Van Zanten. As Lauren said, I'm a principal consultant at Public Digital. Public Digital works with organisations and people, helping them to understand how to adapt their organisations to make the most of the internet and technology and be really user-centred. So I find myself talking about those things with lots of different people, mostly in healthcare, all of the time. And I love talking about Upfront. So very excited to be here and do that today. Holly?
Yes, hi everyone. So yeah, my name is Holly Taylor. I'm the People Director here at Public Digital. I joined just over a year ago, and I'm kind of responsible for all things people, including kind of career development, talent development, and everything like that. So really excited to be having this conversation.
Wonderful. So, Connie, can you tell us why did you want to join the bond? What bond were you in again? Forgive
I
me,
was
I
in Bond
forget.
5.
Bond 5. So where kind of take us back to where you were in Bond 5 and why you saw this thing called a confidence course and thought, I want to be part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a few different strands to it, and it had started like kind of years ago when you were first doing those workshops about Upfront, like the really early iteration. And a friend of mine was really involved, and she just sort of kept talking about how amazing it was. So the seed was sown. Then the moment that it came to actually like, okay, I want to do this, I'm ready to do this. I'd not long started at Public Digital. And I was noticing that, you know, when you start a new job, you often don't feel very confident. And it was making me feel like I was being slow, and it was uncomfortable, and it was frustrating. And it meant that I was just wasting a lot of time and energy on second guessing myself and, you know, rewriting emails a million times before actually sending them. And it was just taking up so much of my brain space and my energy that I just wanted to be getting on the work with the work that I knew I could do. And I think, you know, Upfront was growing, and I thought this was the time, because at this point in my career, I'm at risk of being the person who holds myself back. And this looks like a way of not doing that.
Yes. And I would love a +1 in the chat from anybody listening who recognizes themselves in that story, because I know I recognize lots of bonders and elements of my past self in that story, where you're spending your precious time and energy second guessing yourself instead of putting your skills and talents to use for the contribution that you were hired to make. So thank you for sharing that so openly and honestly. And Holly, when I was thinking about our conversation today, I was struck by my memory of our first meeting, where you were new to the role. It was like, let's have a coffee and get to know each other. And I was really moved by how you kind of mirrored back to me what your introduction of Upfront had been at Public Digital, where you talked about it being just how we do things around here. It's like an integral part of our culture. So I would love you to kind of bring that to life for us, and also hear your perspective from being a people director and a people lead for so many years and having deep expertise in that area. Like, why is this type of work important? Why does confidence matter for teams and businesses?
Yeah. So when I first joined PD, I think I was in my first week, and I was in a meeting, and we were starting to organise Bond. So I guess it would have been Bond 6, so last year. And I'm still very new, still very fresh, and I think that our people coordinator was kind of going down the list of all of our women here, and kind of ticking off of who'd been on the course and who'd not, and creating that short list to make sure that we get as many people as we can on the next Bond. And so straight away I was like, okay, this got to be like a pretty big deal, and kind of like, what is this Upfront, and I before I joined PD, I didn't have any knowledge of Upfront at all, and that's when I reached out to you, and I think it was actually mid-Bond, so we could get a call around, so what is Upfront, what does it consist of, and fully to be able to get my head around the structure and the content. And I suppose from a people director's perspective, I'm thinking, right, what's the ROI, and really understanding, is this adding value, and all of those kind of things. And I think after like 5 minutes of speaking with you, I was like, yeah, I'm sold. Like, this is this is good, this is amazing. So thinking about why that work's like really important. I think that from my reflections of being a people professional and in my role now, I think that often confidence can sometimes get confused with like competence, which is could definitely certainly be the case. But sometimes I've definitely experienced where confidence can be almost like misplaced, and those who might those people that don't that may not actively show those confident characteristics can be overlooked, regardless of their skills and their knowledge and their expertise. And I think that can be really damaging in an organization when you're trying to create a really inclusive culture. So it's kind of just kind of thinking about that. And I think that I've worked, and I currently work with some absolutely incredible people. They're so smart, and they're so dedicated and passionate about their work and their craft. It's such a breath of fresh air. It's amazing to be around. But some of those people are naturally very introverted as well. And when we think about introversion, we may tend to think of someone who's like shy and quiet, and wouldn't say boo to a goose, and but actually they can be incredibly kind of thoughtful and considered, and so knowledgeable. And so if you have this abundance of the skills and this knowledge and this expertise, but the kind of the extroverts are the ones that are overshadowing them, you're only fully harnessing like a portion of your people. So I think this is why it's really important to fully be supporting everybody in terms of like their confidence. And equally, I think that confident people, so naturally very confident people, can sometimes even get in the way of themselves as well, in terms of really achieving what they want to. And I think that the work that Upfront is doing can also help people who are really naturally confident to really kind of maximize their confidence, kind of like taming confidence. That's what I was kind of thinking of, like how to express this, but kind of taming confidence so that you're like fully effective. And I've been in countless situations in my career where naturally confident people, they feel you're in a meeting with them and they feel the need to say something, anything, just to reinforce their presence, and often what they've said wasn't overly thoughtful or considered. So I think actually, being able to provide your people with the opportunity to kind of gain or tame their confidence will kind of really naturally create that level playing field for your culture and your company.
I love the idea of gain and tame. I'm going to steal that. I bet you'll see it on our website soon, because that's a really compelling way to articulate it. And it reminds me of what we've talked about in the past with our bonders, is this idea of performative confidence. So when you're somebody who, if you were to ask your colleagues, they would all say, oh, she's super confident, she's all over it. And you present as confident, but internally, your internal narrative, your inner voice, the stories you tell yourself where you go home at night after work, doesn't reflect that, and that can also be equally exhausting, because I know some people hear the word confidence and think, oh, I don't have a problem there, I can stand on stage and I can do my thing. And that to me just highlights even more how most of us don't really think deeply and intentionally about our confidence, like how it's showing up, what it looks like. And if you're in a really good place with it, then how are you putting that to good use in the world? How are you using it to activate the confidence in the people around you? And that's why I think it's so interesting and fun to be able to have a conversation with people who are in a workplace, in an environment where lots of people in that culture have had the experience. So Connie, I would love for you to speak to a bit like the impact that it's had on your growth, but what role do you think the fact that you have colleagues who have also been on that journey, and that there's, you know, you can sit down with your people director and there's like a shared language and a shared understanding? Because I know there's people listening in who are so far away from that, they're having to fight a battle with even their line manager to get them to understand why this is something that needs to be taken seriously.
I feel like there's so much I could say about that. What immediately comes to mind, so when you're in a bond, one of the most powerful things for me was suddenly finding myself around, I'm always surrounded, I've realized what I was just about to say, I'm always surrounded by different and capable women, but in a bond I was surrounded by different and capable women who were sort of there on the explicit basis that we were all there thinking something, we wanted to change something about our relationship with confidence. And you do these LinkedIn lives every week with the bond, where you ask us, what do we need to unlearn? And this just absolutely amazing thing happens where everyone starts writing in the chat exactly what was in my head. And seeing that articulated by other people and realizing that what is in my head is almost word for word exactly the same as what is in everyone else's, and like how fast those thoughts come and how many there are. That would, being part of the bond, that was really impactful. Knowing that my colleagues have had that experience and are sharing in that way within a bond, and whether it was the bond I was in or in a different bond, it's so powerful, and it gives us that sort of foundation in which to build openness and honesty among ourselves. And exactly like you said, it gives us a language with which to talk about and articulate these feelings, and, and a new perspective, you know, that it's not us that is the problem, and it's not that we do or do not have confidence. It's something that we can learn and develop, and through us all being sort of connected in this way and having had this experience, it means that we can also just really support each other in a really practical way. And so for me personally, being part of a bond and knowing that lots of people in my organization has been part of a bond means that I have this network of people around me who I can speak to about how I'm feeling and seek support from without feeling worried that I'm wasting people's time or I sound stupid or I'm undermining myself. And in turn, what that means, like in my practical reality, is that I am doing more things that scare me, like this, and that is what makes me grow. So it becomes this like self-fulfilling cycle, and I've always got this safety net and network around me to support me with that.
Amazing. And I imagine there's also part of that power is accountability, and that's something I actually joke about it with my team and also with the bond, because for me it's at a stage now where I actually cannot get away with the slightest moment of self-deprecation, doubting myself. Oh, maybe I shouldn't, maybe this feels too much. You know, we had the conversation around the conference. So of course, we recently had our first conference up front and center. First time we brought our community together in person. And so, of course, my first, if not second thought was, what am I going to wear? Like, this is a big deal. And I decided, obviously I wanted to wear something amazing, and I had to get a pep talk from my team and my partner to be like, absolutely, yes, you should get a bespoke bright red sequins jumpsuit. And I was thinking, oh my God. And I was like, this is, you know, it was like having a meta conversation, because if I was having that moment with a bonder or either of you, I know what I would say. And I had to have that support, and I had to have those messages mirrored back to me to remind me that I do have permission to take up space in that way. And sure, people are going to think things and judge me regardless of what I wear or what happens. So show up in that space as you in a way that's going to make you feel proud and happy, you know, right through to yesterday I gave a talk about rejection, and like how the role that when you're in a role that means you're getting rejected a lot, like running a business or in a sales role, that can affect your confidence. You know, and I'm given strategies and tools and insights, and then 3 hours later I get this massive rejection email that's like making me so sad. And you know, my team are able to say, but remember what we talked about, remember what you said this morning, where, you know, reject, it's a muscle, and we get a no early, we can move on, find the next yes. So I feel myself the power in having that accountability. And so Holly, I would love to hear from your perspective, because there'll be people listening thinking this all sounds brilliant and powerful, but we're already really busy. You know, everybody's rushed off their feet, no time for their lunch breaks. And, you know, in many businesses, not all, but in many businesses, budgets are tight right now. We've got a cost of living crisis, various roles being made redundant across different sectors. Like, what would you say to people, leaders who are thinking about enrolling their teams on Bond 7, particularly from like a time and monetary investment perspective?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, you know, I think being able to invest in your people to kind of, you know, game or tame their confidence, you know, is going to have an incredible impact on your culture. And more specifically, I think that in this day and age where, you know, employers, you know, we as employers, we're creating that space for people to be bringing their full selves to work. And so much has been done in order for us to, you know, kind of authentically recognize and celebrate our differences, and to create cultures that are, you know, much more inclusive and much more diverse. And, you know, during COVID, when everyone, you know, was working from home, that kind of the lines were very much blurred, you know, as to where that kind of work lives and our private lives started, you know, and started and finished. And I argue it actually probably did wonders for our company culture, because we really started to get to know our colleagues like on a much more kind of personal and deeper level. And so, you know, if we're thinking about bringing our full selves to work, then why would we only invest in, you know, training that is just targeted at your work self? You know, and I think that, you know, you're essentially then really ignoring a whole other side to your people that you're interacting with on a daily basis. So I think that by sending somebody up front, you are demonstrating that you are investing in their whole self, you know, and from a retention perspective, you know, your people will recognize that this course isn't just going to benefit, you know, the company, and it isn't just going to benefit them in their work. It's you know, for the individual, the impact of the course is going to exceed far beyond their 40-hour working week, you know. And you know, I think that in alone should be a worthwhile cause, you know, just from that kind of investment in your people, and really making them feel seen and valued. And I did check with Connie if I could share this, but like last summer, I spoke with everybody at PD, did one-to-ones with everybody to get a good understanding of like past experiences when it comes to kind of performance reviews and progressions and et cetera. And Connie and I had a lovely conversation, and when I was speaking to her about some of the experiences that she'd had before she joined PD, you know, there'd been some, you know, really challenging experiences that she'd faced when it came to her career, and how she was supported. And I specifically, Connie, remember saying to me, like, I can literally like see it, you know, see and hear her now, is that she was genuinely shocked that PD put her on up front. Like, she could not believe that we would make that kind of investment in her, and when she was so new to the company. And she said, I've got it written down in my notes, it's like, I felt so valued. Connie, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that, but, you know.
Yeah. It felt I suppose this is for anyone from the other perspective, anyone
Mm-hmm.
thinking of making the case to go on a bond for
Mm-hmm.
them or for people in their company. But it felt at that point like such a big deal to ask for my company to spend money on me for something as like intangible as confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able, you know, it takes a bit to work up. Public digital is a lovely way to work, place to work. So it didn't take as much to build up to having that conversation as it might in another place. But equally, there was someone I was speaking to about it to like build up my confidence to do so. And then how easy that conversation was, and then how Public Digital has just picked that up and run with it and been properly interested in like what it's meant for me individually, and then other people going on it. It just tells you that your company actually, it's like it's putting your money where your mouth is sort of thing, you know, like it's an action that speaks louder than words.
Yeah, that's a powerful story. And I think, you know, I have my version of that, from which is partly why we're in this conversation, and that, you know, Ben and Tom have been so supportive of me and Upfront when it was just me, and like Kim, who was my PA, and the bond was on Facebook, and we were, you know, making it up as we go along very much. And, you know, so supportive and like mirroring back to me, like, you need to see the impact this thing is having. Like, this is an incredible thing that you're building. And I, you know, I really don't underestimate the power of that feedback and that buy-in and that support from leaders who are operating at that level. It's yeah, it really matters, I think. And I think I love what you said, Holly, about the kind of whole person approach, because one of the most common bits of feedback that we get is, you know, I showed up with a really specific, like, I want to get better at presenting in meetings. I want to feel more comfortable when I'm put on the spot in a meeting, want to give more presentations, want to get better at giving, receiving feedback. You know, there'll be a specific work objective, but actually what I got was, and it'll be things that have affected how they parent, how they're in relationship, how they show up in their community, their relationship with politics, like a whole wide range of different things. So it's really powerful to kind of hear that reflected from, you know, a people expert's point of view, and like that really is the future of retaining talent and building cultures that are genuinely inclusive and genuinely supporting people's growth. I wonder if there's like maybe an example or an anecdote that you might share of a moment, maybe in a meeting or with a client, or like in the one-to-one you just shared, Holly, where the kind of intentional culture that you've built around confidence kind of came to life, and you know, you noticed it and you felt the impact.
Yeah, I can start. So I think that because I think that where I have only been here a year, and so I've not necessarily been able to see that kind of before and after of a lot of people that have kind of been on the board. So I was actually talking to Ben, our CEO, yesterday. I think he's listening actually, so he's going to hear this. But
hi, Ben.
And I said, and I said, you know, I was going to be, you know, doing this with Connie today, and I was kind of explaining to, you know, some of the, you know, things we're going to be talking about, and he said, oh, do you know actually how Upfront came about? I said, no, not at all. And so he said, you know, that a couple of years ago, and I won't name her, but one of our partners, she was actually getting some executive coaching, and Ben had really started to notice how it was really, you know, making an impact, and just kind of very subtle things, but, you know, just in terms of the way that she was showing up at meetings, even the way she was carrying herself. And, you know, he pulled her aside, said, oh, you know, that exec coaching must be working wonders. And she said, no, that's rubbish. I've been doing this confidence course, and she said it's absolutely amazing, and it's changed my life. You know, and he was like, okay, well, what is this? You know, what is this course? And she said, okay, it's Upfront. And he's like, okay, well, you know, have you paid for it? He said, she said, yeah, I've just paid for it myself. And, he's like, right, first things first, go and expense it. Second thing is we need to get every single woman that we have, currently working here on this course, and that's when it all kind of get kicked off. And then, the rest is history. And I think at PD, obviously you kind of mentioned a few of them. We've got 4 male founders, and they're incredibly conscious of that fact. And, they definitely definitely go above and beyond to really give women a platform and to support them in their promotions. And this was well before even PD came about. So that it's not even that it's not even about the kind of financial investment. I think that's kind of largely even like irrelevant to them. Hopefully when we're saying that, but it's more about like that we're really kind of giving that opportunity to our female colleagues to work on some of these things that again may come more naturally to men or whatever, but we're just trying to help do whatever we can to try and tip that balance, even though actually I was looking at stats this morning, we're about 70% women here at PD. Which is amazing. So we have a fantastic community of people here, and that's my kind of little short story there.
Yeah, it's a great story. Thank you for sharing. Connie, do you have one you'd like to share?
Yeah, I thinking about it as Holly was talking, and there was like a very immediate impact to going on up front. With the cohort that I was in, the bond that I was in was 3 people from public digital, so me and 2 of my lovely colleagues, and off the back of our experience with the bond, we came back to public digital and we did a presentation about how confidence does and doesn't manifest, and what our opportunities are for creating a space and a culture in which people can be confident in different ways, and how public digital could get even better and specifically more intentional about doing that. And that was just like off the back, like riding on the wave of the bond itself. And now I see it all the time manifesting in like in big ways and in little ways. I could talk for a long time about the ways I see it manifesting in myself and in the things that I will do now and the things that I can do now that I would have been significantly more worried about before. And when I feel worried about a thing, I can remember that I felt like that about something else and I got past it. So that's really powerful and is really great for when we are talking to each other about these sorts of things, because we're all at different points of the journey, which gives us a really sort of wide, valid range of perspectives. And the other, at Public Digital, we work very openly. So we all talk about the work that we're doing all of the time. And like 2 key ways in which that happens is we have like internal meetings where we just talk about the work we are doing in like a short, sharp way. And also we do these things called week notes. So at the end of the week, everyone writes a little summary about how their week was and what they got up to. And you can just see people evolving in their week notes and in their presentation skills and in their facilitation style. And you're like, yes, like, I'm so glad you're saying that thing. And I'm so glad you're doing this. And I'm so glad you're putting yourself out there like that. And it's just made things even more open and honest and authentic, I think.
Ah, brilliant. And the week notes are really easy to find. If anybody's curious, you can go on Twitter, find Connie, search the week notes hashtag. I know folks like Emily and other folks in the chat write week notes, and they're really powerful ways to make your work visible, to connect with other people who care about the same things as you. Holly, I'm wondering what your advice would be to people who want to ask their employer to pay for their ticket, which they absolutely should. Anybody who has is employed, their employer should pay for their ticket. What would your advice to them be, given that not all people directors are going to necessarily get this the way that you do? Where do you think we do have a template, I should say, that I can share with anybody who would like to have it, an email with some different tips and ideas on how you might ask. yeah, what would your advice be, Holly?
Yeah, I was going to say, well, give him my email and I'll have a chat with him. But maybe I shouldn't offer that. Yeah, I just think that, again, just thinking about actually, like, what could you do? Like, what is holding you back, and what's that? You know, where are you now? Where do you want to get to, and what does that potential look like in yourself? And like, how is it that, you know, this you know, largely, you know, small financial investment of how it's going to really impact that person's life, you know. And again, it's not just from a work perspective, but it's all of those other things. And again, I would just keep going back to, like, you know, if you want me to bring my whole self to work, you know, then I need, you know, I would appreciate having, you know, an investment or something that's going to really focus on all of that, rather than it just being something that's very, like, narrow and binary in that person's skill set, which again has got a very, you know, obvious return on investment from a you know, from a business perspective. That, you know, that's the way that I would start framing it, you know. And again, thinking about from a cultural perspective, you know, you just need one or two people to go on the course and then bring it back, you know, bring back their learnings. You know, I can help other women, I can bring my learnings back. And you know, again, and that starts to really spread and manifest itself. And then you know, before you know it, you've got a culture of people that, again, like Connie was explaining, of, you know, that have been through that same experience, that have that shared experience to draw upon. And you can kind of start seeing things showing up in different people and spot those signs of when people maybe are having a crisis of confidence. And again, just support each other, because, you know, we're all in it together at the end of the day. So that would be what I'd say.
Brilliant advice, I think, to focus on the kind of sharing back piece and what the ripple effect of that might be. A few folks have asked for the template. We can absolutely share that on. And so the last question I wanted to ask you, Connie, because Holly is going to be part of Bond 7 along with some other PD folks. So I wonder, what is your advice to your PD colleagues who will be entering the bond for the first time? What would your one piece of advice to them be?
One, okay. There are so many, not because it's lots of work, but there feels like a lot of things that I could say. I think the most important thing, which probably is going to sound really obvious, but it's one of the really hard things, and I think it makes the difference between having an experience in the bond that will have a lasting impact on you or not, is really, you've just got to make space for the bond. Like, we're all busy. Our diaries and our to-do lists are overflowing. But this is one of those things, if you make the time for it now, when it's there right in front of you, it's going to impact your whole future and your whole life. So make the time for it. And that doesn't mean you have to do everything all at once. You know, this is a journey. And for a lot of people, for me, doing Upfront was like my first intentional step on my confidence journey. The bond's practically speaking, the bond has so many elements to it, and you can try it all, figure out what's most helpful and impactful for you, and focus on that. And then, you know, in making space, practice while you're learning it. And I think the last thing I'd say is just make sure there is at least one other person that you can talk to about what you're learning and what you're doing as you're doing it. Because that will help you to process and to apply it and to be really accountable to yourself.
Amazing tips. And that's the power of doing it with your colleagues, because you're having lunch together, you have your catch up over coffee on the days you're in the office, or whatever that might look like, means you have those moments of connection. This has been so nice to kind of get a deeper insight into how this, you know, how the bond really does impact teams and cultures. And I see there's lots of folks in the chat excited to go and talk to their people leads and talk to their employers. So very grateful for your time. Somebody's asked a couple of questions about how it all works. So quick recap before we check out. It's a 6-week online course There's pre-recorded videos, a weekly live session, and a community. Everything is pre-recorded, so there is no risk. You don't need to be at a certain place at any time. The study time that we ask for is 3 hours a week, and that is totally up to you what that looks like. Some folks do more, some folks do less, some folks do it all on the same day, some folks spread it over the week. It's entirely up to yourself. And if you choose to sign up, we only host one bond a year, so if you hesitate, you will have to wait another 12 months before bond 8, which I wouldn't advise. So when you sign up, you can get your ticket at weareupfront.com. We will welcome you on June 5th, and you will find your people. You will learn to love a thing that used to scare you, and you will increase your confidence. Those are the 3 things that I can guarantee will happen, and you will be rubbing shoulders with brilliant consultants and leaders like Connie and Holly, and also people from all different walks of life: primary school teachers, jewelers, engineers from NASA, apprentices, chief execs. It's such a diverse group, and we don't really care too much what your job title is. That's something that's quite unique about the bond. We don't put emphasis on job titles, we put emphasis on values. And you're showing up to understand how to activate your confidence and how to activate it in other people. Because I believe, and I hope this conversation has shown you, that when you activate your confidence in a way that's real and lasting, it really does change. It changes lives, it changes communities, it changes organizations and cultures and teams. And we're on a mission to support 1 million women. So I hope you choose to join us. And thank you so much, Connie. Thank you so much, Holly. Thank you to other folks at PD, Ben and Tom and the rest of the leaders who I'm sure will be listening in. Thank you for all of your support and energy. We're excited to welcome you to Bond 7.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Enjoy the rest of your day. Been so nice to see you both.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Bye.
you as
All right,
well.
bye.
Thank you. Bye.